Join us on a journey where India City Walks takes you through a journey where academia meets tourism. Our Walk Icons initiative brings you the best in thematic walks celebrating the rich tapestry of our culture, its heritage and culture. Led by resource persons like historians, authors, and master storytellers, each walk offers a deep dive into the fascinating stories of the past. Experience the blend of authenticity and engagement through curated tours, bear-tucks, and insightful workshops. Explore, learn, and celebrate the intricate nuances of Indian art, history, and architecture with us. Let us bridge this gap between academia and tourism and start telling stories together. Today, our guest is Dr. Amita Paliwal. She is an extremely esteemed resource person. Dr. Paliwal is an assistant professor in the history department of Jesus and Mary College, University of Delhi. She is a strong research person with keen interest in Mughal history. And of course, she has published extensively on topics such as Mughal architecture and history of Sindh under the Mughals. And her acclaimed work on Zafar Mahal has significantly enriched our understanding of the late Mughal architecture. Of course, Dr. Paliwal has lots of accolades backing her, and she has so many things to share with us today. I'm very, very pleased to have you here. Thank you for making it here today.
Thank you for inviting me, Nidhi. Thank you so much.
So, I believe currently you're reading Humayun Nama.
Yes, I'm reading Humayun Nama.
And it's a very interesting thing because, while we're going to be talking a lot about Humayun Nama, but what is stopping me and what is, making me very excited is that we are going to speak so much about a lot of things that people hear, say, but don't have the intricate details or don't have the nuances with which you're going to be talking about today. So very excited and looking forward to this.
Yeah.
We are not going to make this session boring. We are not going to make this session a lecture on history. So the way we are going to do this is today we are interacting with Dr. Paliwal, where it's going to be in the form of a discussion. This is going to be followed up with a walk, a heritage walk of Humayun's tomb on the 20th of July, and of course a bear-tuck on Humayun on the 3rd of August. So I want to start with a couple of questions that I have been pondering about.
Yes.
The first one being, what do you think is the relationship between tourism and history?
See, tourism and history, these are like twin sisters. Tourism cannot survive without the knowledge of history, because in tourism you have culture, you have monuments, you have storytelling. So all this is actually enriches tourism, and you have to have knowledge of history when you are promoting tourism. So these are very much interconnected. The tourism survive on the basis of historical monuments. Tourism survive on the basis of culture, and all this we study in history. So these are two inseparable twins, we can say. Yeah.
Very rightly said. I think it's so true that, history is the backbone for us to tell stories. Yes. And we showcase our country very proudly based on all the historical yes. evidences, nuances, and stories that we hear and all of you bring to us. Yeah. We also hear, and this is my second question to you, that we see so many people interested in, heritage walks, special tours, storytelling. Yet these roles haven't become very popular as that of the role of an author or a historian. In short, I don't see many people becoming heritage walk leaders or storytellers or coming into the field of tourism with the background of, academic history background. Would you like to throw some light on this?
Yeah, so maybe earlier it used to happen that, all the ASI walk leaders, they used to have a historian giving them talk, and then they used to have an understanding of a particular monument, and they will understand the history behind it. But now that culture is going, now the culture which is coming up is of popular history. Right. So people just want to know about folklore, stories, and they don't want to go into intensive research. and that is where academia stops, because in academia we do have inclusion of oral histories, folklores, but we focus mainly primarily on the primary documents, and that becomes sometimes boring for the people who just want to come on the walk for fun, right?
Yeah.
Because walk is a mixture of activity, it's a storytelling also, it's a knowledge of history also, knowledge of architecture also, so it's a blending of all. And in academia you primarily focus on everything, but we focus on writing rather than narrating it to in public, right? In conferences we do that, in colleges, in universities we do that, but then we know that these people are also from academia, while in heritage walks, when you have people, these are from different strata of the society, they might not be having the basics of the of that particular place where you're conducting the walk. For example, they may not be knowing whether Gulbadan Banu Begum was a daughter of Babur or Akbar, right? So that's the problem. So we can't start with scratch.
Yeah.
We have an understanding that the person who is talking to us has the basic knowledge, so then we proceed. So that is, I think, is where academia is hesitant in coming into tourism. But yes, we want people to have a real history when they go to a particular historical site, not the rumors, not the made up stories, the real history from the sources and from the folklores.
Yeah, I think very aptly said. The real history is what needs to come out.
Yes.
And bringing that to the topic of Humayun Nama that you have been recently reading. And, while Humayun's tomb is so popular in Delhi and many people have visited, not only Delhiites, people coming from international countries, people coming from other cities in our own country really come to see Humayun's tomb. And now that you're reading Humayun Nama, I have a couple of questions that I thought I will throw it up to you, and let's see how we can bring it more and more information about what you're reading, and all of us can learn more from that. My first question is, how justifiable is it, given Annette Beveridge observation, that Humayun Nama has been somewhat overlooked compared to Akbar Nama and other chronicles that have come out? So where do you feel this fits in, and why is it not as popular as the others?
It's a very good question, Nidhi. When Annette was writing that, they have access to all the official chronicles. And when you have official history, the personal histories or the private histories do matter. But at the time when Annette is translating the starting of the 20th century, that is the time when the political histories from the official chronicles are mattering a lot. That time they didn't have the concept of gender history. That time they didn't have the concept of, history written by a lady. She might be having, depiction of emotions of ladies and from the ladies' perspective. So this was not in her mind. To my opinion, Gulbadan, and now everyone, whoever is writing on gender history, Gulbadan Begum's account is a must. You cannot write gender history without looking at Humayun Nama or without reading Gulbadan Banu Begum, because that is the only account written by a lady in the entire Mughal India. We do have poems, but we do not have accounts.
Very interesting. And you've been mentioning the name of Gulbadan Begum. Any secrets that you'd like to reveal from Humayun Nama that are interesting?
Okay, so it is full of very interesting anecdotes, because when you read official chronicle, or even when you read autobiography of Babur sometimes conceals some emotional thing, and which Gulbadan Banu Begum is highlighting. For example, when Maham comes from Kabul and she's coming to Agra, and Babur is there to receive, so Gulbadan Banu Begum tells that Our Lady is coming, and she talks about what is the importance of Maham, the mother of Humayun, to Babar, and she tells that Maham is to Humayun, she is as Aisha, Bibi Aisha was for Prophet.
Oh.
So she was the most, favorite wife. So Maham, the moment Maham comes and, Baba gets to know that Maham is coming, Baba runs barefoot and he holds Maham and he takes her in his lap and then she gets down. So that's the kind of affect, the emotions
Right.
which Babar is not telling. Babar just tells us he's so happy that Maham is coming, but she's telling. And then she talks about one very interesting, wife of Babar, and she tells that she's Afghan Agacha. She calls her Afghan Agacha. She's a Yusufzai lady married to Babar, and there's a very interesting thing that she says. She said when Afghan Agacha got married to Babar, and she's a very strong lady. Her build is very strong, and she tells that just one day, she was talking to me, and very funnily, she just twisted my arm, and then she was grabbing my arm and my shoulder. I dislocated my shoulder. And then she came and she just twisted my arm and it was back to. So she was a very strong lady. She talks about that. And she says that, but Babar was married to Afghan Agacha. So Afghan Agacha told Babar, and that is confirmed by Babar also, that now you don't worry about Yusufzais. They were troubling you a lot in Kabul. Now you don't worry because they are under my skirt. So that talks about, the control of that lady.
Yes.
Yeah. So she talks about things which no one has, for example, in official chronicle also. Everyone calls this other wife of Humayun Haji Begum, Haji Begum, Haji Begum. No one tells the real name. The real names of all the ladies of the harem is told by Gulbadin Mano. So, and there's another very interesting thing that she tells, if I can just say it in Hindi, because maza usme bahut aata hai. So, Babar, Humayun has come to, ladies are in India, Humayun is also in India, and they are near Gujarat, and in the morning, before the morning prayer, this Bega Begum, whom we call Haji Begum, so Bega Begum complains Humayun कि बाकी सबके टेंट में तो you are going 3-4 times, मेरी राहों में क्या कांटे बिछे हैं जो यहाँ बिल्कुल नहीं आते. So that Humayun that time he didn't say anything. So Gulbadan Bano Begum tells that Humayun अगर कुछ नहीं बोल रहे हैं ना तो इसका मतलब वो गुस्सा है. So when he's angry he won't say anything. But the next day he writes a letter that Bibi, you should be happy that I'm here with you all, and I'm an opium eater. What do you expect from opium eater? आने जाने में थोड़ी बहुत देर तो हो ही जाती है. So these interesting episodes in the human angle, the emotional angle, and the very feminine angle that you get only in the Gulbadan Bano Begum. वो और कहीं नहीं मिलता है.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward कि जब हम बैठा करेंगे तो और कितनी कहानियां, कितनी stories निकल के आएंगी, and that's going to be such an interesting piece. Coming back to some other questions, one of them being, what is the significance of building Humayun's tomb within the Islamic traditions of the burials, especially considering it's a location near the shrine of the revered Sufi saint Nizamuddin Aulia, and the transformation of the burial sites into places of reverence. So, what do you feel is the concept of this entire piece?
See, if you look at Humayun's tomb, the location, if you look at the style of, what is the style? Is it a Central Asian style, or it's the pure, some Iranian style, or it has a blending of Timurid plus Safavid style. So one gets to know that Humayun's building or Humayun's tomb is not something which is unique, because something like this has already been built in 15th century by Ishrat Khana. It's called Ishrat Khana's Museum.
Right.
So in Central Asia, there was a tradition of tomb for the family. So the head of the family will not be buried alone. All his family members, whenever they die, they will be buried along with him. So Ishrat Khana Mausoleums is a ladies one.
Okay.
And what we find here, and it's a double story again, right? So here again we find that all his family members, most of his family members, and later on, the late Mughals and they all are buried here. Most of them family members are buried. It has a very typical Central Asian features. For example, it has chamfered angles. If you look at Humayun's tomb, the upper story, it has chamfered angles, which is a purely Central Asian. It's like it's a square, but it will look like octagonal.
Right.
So that is something which is there. Then the dome. The dome is it's a bulbous dome, but again it's a very Tatari dome. So that's again a Central Asian features. Then the color scheme, if you see, it's red and white. That's a Seljukian Turks. So that's a very Seljukian feature which you'll find in Alauddin Khilji's building also, which you find in Sher Shah Suri's building in Delhi also. So it's a perfect blending, and also the Islamic ways are properly followed here. In Islam, there is a concept of a garden of heaven, right? So if you look at the Humayun's garden, and in the garden of heaven, Jannat mein jo baag hai,
Bilkul.
Parizad, right? Paradise jo hai,
Right.
Jannat mein. So the water will come from all the side and will disappear underneath the God's throne. And here in Humayun's tomb, you'll find the same. So Islamic canons are also here. Plus the burial is totally in the Islamic way, right? North-south direction mein, and the grave is in the north-south direction. Then you have the west side closed, because west side Kaaba is there. Then you have a circumambulation. So because Humayun's wives are also coming from the Sufi families, right? Family of Jam of Ajam. So, Ahmad of Jam. So he was a well-known Sufi. So two of his wives are coming from the Sufi family. So they have this concept of circumambulation. And if you look at the Islamic way, they also have the concept of circumambulation. So in Humayun's tomb, if you look at the family members, you're automatically actually circumambulating,
Right.
his grave.
Yes.
So he is, and the fact that he is buried near Nizamuddin Aulia, the Mughals have a connection with the Chishtis. During Humayun's time, and it is because it is not built during Humayun's time, it's built later on. So by that time, the Mughals are already drawn towards the Chishtis, and Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia is a very popular Sufi saint of Delhi. So in order to seek a constant blessings of Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia, whoever comes to the tomb, and the soul of Humayun is blessed by the blessings of Hazrat Nizamuddin, and that is the whole concept. So we can say that it's a Islamic canons are also there, and Central Asian architectural features are also there.
Right. I think we're going to see a lot of that
Yeah.
when we do the actual walk,
Yes.
actual heritage walk. So all this that you're talking about comes to life in front of us
Yes.
when we are doing this heritage walk. Interesting. So, any stories that you'd like to share, any anecdotes, very quick anecdotes about the architect of this magnificent tomb?
Okay, so this, as far as Miraq Mirza Gayaz Beg is concerned, the architect, he was actually a Santara, a stone cutter basically. He was from Herat, and he was called, and what he suggested that the garden should be like as if it's a carpet.
Oh,
And that's how the planning of the garden was, like it should, everywhere you look, it should look like a garden. Like there'll be, and he has planned that there'll be citrus trees planted in that, and there'll be trees, the fruit trees with a good citrus fragrance.
Okay.
So whenever the wind blows, there is a fragrance all around. And if you look at the laying of the garden, it actually looks like a carpet. So he had this in mind that it has to look like a carpet. So that is one thing is there. And definitely when he's coming from Herat, so he is very much aware of Central Asian features, right?
Yes.
And we know for sure because this is written by Badayuni. Badayuni talks about, Badayuni is the only one who gives us the exact time of building this monument. And he tells that Akbar was not fully involved in it. It is actually the wife of Humayun, who that wife is, right? We'll talk about that. And the ideas of the architect. So, architect is given a full hand.
Right.
And he has given us a piece, a marvelous piece. In fact, it's a trendsetter.
It is. Truly.
If you look at the later monuments, it's a trendsetter. Most of the later monuments, even Taj Mahal, if you just put minarets there, it's actually like Taj Mahal. So it's the predecessor of Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
So that's the idea that Miraq, and that contribution goes to the architect. Yeah.
Wow.
And the trust that Mughals kept him, he was brought all the way from Herat. Wow. पत्थर तोड़ के वो पत्थर लगाने का काम कर रहे थे, and here he's
and what a magnificent tomb has he built.
Yes. So
Very nice, very interesting. So, coming to the question, because you mentioned about the wife of Humayun.
Yeah.
Truly, who commissioned? क्योंकि इसके बारे में इतनी बातें होती हैं and इस वक्त भी काफी confusion रहता है कि who really commissioned the tomb of Humayun?
Yeah.
Which wife?
Okay. So it's actually, if you look at the chronicle, then they give the name of Bega Begum. Right. And official chronicle, not official chronicle, but Gulbadan gives the indication. So it's Haji Begum, and we know for sure that Hamida Banu Begum is not referred as Haji Begum. It's only Bega Begum who is referred as Haji Begum. So she is the one who has gone on Hajj much before Gulbadan and other wives of Humayun had gone on Hajj. So she has gone on 1564, 65, and then she has come back, right? And it's more. There's no clear-cut indication everywhere, but higher probability is that because she's come to Delhi, she's stationed there. She's also given the charge along with Hamida Banu Begum. She's also been given the charge, but she's here and she's the one who's bringing from Hajj some Arabs.
Okay.
And that's how for their stationing we have Arab Ki Sarai also.
Correct.
And we know for sure that before her, others have not gone on Hajj. After that, they've gone on Hajj, but they are not called Haji. It's only Bega Begum who is called Haji. And Bega Begum is very dear to Humayun. Hamida Banu Begum is also dear, and Bega Begum also. Because whenever he's going on any campaign, he's hugging them all. So that's a very interesting thing. So I think it's the Bega Begum who has constructed the tomb of, and Akbar has a very high regard for her. Very high regard, and Akbar calls her, second mother. Though Bega has not adopted Akbar, but Akbar, don't know why, but and Akbar tells his story also, if I can tell you, that Akbar had a toothache. He was a kid. So he had a toothache, and it's mentioned in Akbarnama. So he talks about that Bega Begum immediately came and she wanted to apply some ointment to give me relief, but Hamida Banu Begum was, she told her not. So then Bega Begum, she applied it on her. She had eaten it first, and I'm not giving anything back to Akbar. So then Akbar was given. So Akbar talks about her death. Akbar talks about the visits whenever she's coming to meet Akbar. Akbar goes to meet her. So I think it's a bigger.
What is most fascinating is that you said कि हुमायूं अपनी वाइफ को हक देकर जाता था.
हक देकर.
I think today's men should also
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
take it on from there and
Yeah.
give a hug. माना जाता है कि हुमायूं की जो कॉर्प्स है वो फाइनली हुमायूं टूम पहुंचा ऑलमोस्ट आफ्टर 2 decades. तो इसके बारे में थोड़ा सा थ्रो लाइट ऑन व्हाट हैपेंड after he died and that entire episode. If you can just share a snippet on that.
Yes. So, what I'll be telling you, it's on the basis of Akbarnama and also on the basis of what Johar Aftabchi has written on Wakyat-e Humayun. So, sorry, Tazkiratul Humayun. So, I'll be talking about on the basis of that. So, when it is said when Humayun fell and Humayun got a hit on his head, towards the right side. And when he was checked, he was all right. Hakim had checked, but he was all right. But after, in night, he passed away. So it was January. It's very interesting. Humayun's birth was in January and he died in January.
Okay.
Its birth and death month is same. So when he died, it was not informed to anyone in Delhi. The common public see information concealed करी गई थी.
अच्छा.
For more than 10 days.
Oh.
Yes. And it is also written that a look-alike of Humayun was placed on a window so that they know that Humayun is not dead. Meanwhile, some senior nobles were sent towards Sarhind, and Johar Aftabchi writes that during that time, Humayun's corpse was buried in the fort. So that means the old fort.
Okay.
So, and it is also mentioned that he was given a bath. And there's a bauli within the fort.
Yes, there's a bauli.
So he was given a bath from that water, and then he was buried in the old fort, and then he was taken to a place. There's another historian mentioned that Sarhind. He was taken to Sarhind, and then he was brought. And then Johar Aftabchi writes that he was then placed in an area which is a new city. So new city is again Deenpana, near Deenpana. Or new city, if we go by Sultanate record, Sheher-e-Nau, it was Kilokari. Right. So, but Johar Aftabchi said that where he was buried, a very magnificent mausoleum was made over it.
अच्छा.
That tells us that his body is not moved now. So it's moved 2 times, and probably because they were waiting in haste, Akbar was brought to Kalanur in Punjab. Bairam Khan, Tardi Beg, Munin, all these senior nobles went there, and coronation of Akbar took place.
Right.
1556. So, and then he was just a kid.
Absolutely.
Right? And then he was brought to Delhi. So all this took a time, and so Humayun remained buried initially in the old fort, which was also his new city, Deenpana, within the fort, probably. And then he was brought towards the place where the mausoleum is built now. And if you look at the location, in fact, Kilokari or Gyaspur ka location, Gyaspur, which is presently Nizamuddin area, उसका लोकेशन भी इतना ज्यादा वो नहीं है, बट ये कि किलोकड़ी वो इज ऑन द वेस्ट बैंक एंड दिस इज ऑन द ईस्टर्न बैंक. दैट्स इट. जमुना दोनों के, सो एक इधर है एक इधर है. So one can safely say that in the vicinity of Gyaspur, that is clearly been mentioned. So probably किलोकड़ी, अभी तो यही उसमें है कि किलोकड़ी एक्चुअली था कहाँ.
Correct.
But Professor Najaf Haidar has worked on it, and that paper has come and is been published and etc. So we know the location of Kilo Khari.
Yes,
Right.
Kilo Khari is a very interesting place,
Yes.
location, and all of us are very excited and intrigued,
Intrigued.
about it. And hopefully, in some time to come, we will
Yeah.
cover that as well.
Yes,
as a
because
part
there are a
of
lot
our.
of anecdotes related to right from the Khalji period, and right from the Balban period. There are mazedar किस्से हैं maybe.
Yes.
So then we'll talk about that. Right.
एक बड़ा interesting piece है. Many people have asked about that. There was a lot written about Humayun and his romantic side, right? Because Humayun was an opium consumer. Not just because he was an opium consumer, but ऐसा माना जाता है कि एक बहुत ही interesting side थी हुमायूं की और एक romantic side थी. So, considering the age difference between him and Hamida Bano Begum, any stories that you'd like to share on that front?
Yeah, that also comes from Humayunama, right? Gulbadan Banu Begum talks about that. So that's see, Humayun is like Bayazid Bayat when he compares Humayun with his brother Kamran.
Okay.
So Kamran is shrewd.
Hmm.
Kamran is very manipulative and Kamran is very politically correct. हुमायूं जो हैं वो बहुत ह्यूमैनिटेरियन ग्राउंड पे वर्क करते हैं. तो ये एंड उनमें ही इज वेरी इमोशनल. तो जो पर्सन इमोशनल है वो रोमांटिक भी होगा.
Of course.
हुमायूं जो है अपने इम्पल्सिस पे बहुत काम करते हैं. सो ये वो समय है जब इंसान के दिमाग में रोमांस नहीं आता है, और उस समय भी हुमायूं के दिमाग में रोमांस आ गया. वो हुआ यूं कि जब हुमायूं शेरशाह से बच के जब वो जा रहे थे, ही वांटेड टू गो टुवर्ड्स ईरान टू टेक शेल्टर देयर. तो वो जब उनका काफिला सिंध के पास पहुंचा है, सिंध के पहले एक जगह तो वो वहां पे रुके हुए हैं. और हिंदाल जो इनके गुलबदन बानो बेगम जिसने हुमायूं लिखा, उनके जो भाई हैं, सो हिंदाल वहां पे हैं. और ये जाते हैं हिंदाल के से मिलने जाते हैं. तो हिंदाल का जो लेडीज कंपार्टमेंट, लेडीज वाला एरिया है, वहां पे जब ये जाते हैं तो ही सी हमीदा बानो बेगम.
अच्छा.
तो हमीदा बानो बेगम को जब देखते हैं तो वो हिंदाल से पूछते हैं कि भाई ये साहिबा कौन है. तो हिंदाल फिर उन्हें दिलदार बेगम जवाब देती है दैट शी इज बाबा दोस्त की डॉटर है, ये करके ये बताते हैं. कहते हैं हाउ कम आई हैव सीन, इससे तो मेरी शादी करवाओ. तो वो एकदम से बोलते हैं इससे तो मेरी शादी करवाओ. तो हिंदाल नाराज हो जाते हैं. एंड गुलबदन बानो बेगम राइट्स की ये हमीदा बानो बेगम उस समय सिर्फ 14 साल की.
अच्छा, बहुत ही छोटी.
बहुत छोटी हैं. और हुमायूं हैं वो 32-33 के हैं. सो हमीदा बानो बेगम का आना जाना हिंदाल की पार्टीज में बहुत होता है. तो हुमायूं कहते हैं हिंदाल से उसको भेजो ना एक बार और एक मिलवाओ मुझसे. तो एक बार मेरे उसमें आकर महफिल में आकर आदाब तो कर दो. तो वो मना कर देती है हमीदा बानो बेगम, बिकॉज शी इज अ वेरी she's a child and she's irritated now.
Yes.
So she said, once I've conveyed my greetings to him, I will not go now. And Hindal also told, and this is पूरा वाक्य जो है गुलबदन बानो बेगम लिख रही हैं. So Hindal also tells कि she's I'm taking care of her. She's like a daughter to me.
Right.
You stop troubling her. तो फिर वो हैरम की लेडीज से बोलते हैं. तो जो दिलदार बेगम है ना, हिंदाल की मदर गुलबदन बानो बेगम, उससे बोलते हैं. तो दिलदार बेगम जाके बोलती हैं हमीदा बानो बेगम से, तुमको शादी तो करनी है, कभी ना कभी तो करोगी, तो इससे क्यों नहीं करती हो जो हिंदुस्तान का बादशाह है. अब ये बात आता कि बादशाह सलामत अपनी जान वो बचा के भाग रहे थे क्योंकि शेरशाह सूरी ने ऑलरेडी उनको दे दी थी. सो after and गुलबदन बानो बेगम राइट के 40 days तक ये पेस्टरिंग चलती रही. And then Hamida Bano Begum said nahi. And then she said, I want to marry a person whose collar my hands can reach, not a man whose skirts I cannot reach. So apparently Humayun is very tall.
अच्छा.
And Hamida Bano Begum छोटी हैं, बट बाद में उनकी वही सिंध में ही उनकी शादी हो जाती है. और ultimately she gives up.
Gives up.
So Bega Begum और हमीदा बानो बेगम दोनों ही सूफी फैमिली से बिलोंग करते हैं. Yes.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
finally, his chase led her to
Oh, yeah.
give in, and they finally got
And
married.
there are many examples where he goes and he says, इससे मेरी शादी करा दो. So इस तरह से उनकी 8 बेगमें हैं.
Wow.
But he's very affectionate. He's very affectionate with all of them.
All 8 begums and very affectionate with all 8 begums.
Yeah. And leave aside concubines and
और आज के दिन में हमारे एक एक शौहर है.
हाँ.
और
शौहर एक नहीं संभाल पाते.
एक नहीं संभाल पा रहे. Okay, now coming to the last question, but it's something that I'm very interested in. आज के दिन में astrology, और मैंने देखा है कि astrology in India has become such a big business. Big accounted business. For every second person believes in astrology, and every second person कहीं ना कहीं दिखा रहे होते हैं, कहीं अपना टैरो कार्ड करते हैं, कोई कुंडली देख रहे होते हैं, कोई कुछ कर रहे होते हैं. I believe Humayun was also a staunch believer in astrology. So can you throw some light on how did it influence his decisions in his life? Anything that you'd like to share about astrology, because एक ऐसा topic है जहाँ पे ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोग सब interested हैं.
Yes. That's again a very good question, Nidhi. So what happens that in Islam, astrology is not allowed, Najumiyat.
Oh really?
Yes. And another interesting thing is that all the Mughals were very, superstitious. And they actually believed in astrology. They had astrologers as well as they have pandits also. जो बिल्कुल शुभ घड़ी शुभ मुहूर्त देखकर उनको बताते थे. लाइक जब हुमायूं की डेथ हुई है तो उस समय हुमायूं ने पूरी अपनी एक एस्ट्रोनॉमी बनवाई है जिसको आज हम शेर मंडल के नाम से जानते हैं. तो उस ऑब्जर्वेटरी में हुमायूं की जिस दिन डेथ हुई है वो एक्चुअली वीनस का मूवमेंट देखने जा रहा था.
करेक्ट.
सो वो उसमें ही उसकी डेथ हुई है. इनफैक्ट अकबर नामा में बिल्कुल लिखा है कि जैसे ही अकबर पैदा हुए हैं तो हुमायूं ने पूरा उनका वो लग्न बनवाया है और उसमें बताया गया कि ये जो है ये बहुत ग्रेट किंग होंगे. तब खुश होके हुमायूं जो है कस्तूरी, एक पॉड होता है उनके पास, कस्तूरी का, तो वो बांटते हैं कि इसी तरह की खुशबू मेरे बच्चे की हर जगह बैठे. तो सारे इवन अकबर ये नजूमियत में बहुत बिलीव करते हैं. और तो और छोड़िए शाहजहां, जहांगीर, who not, they all were into this astrology. So I think it is something which is in fact their buildings.
Yes.
अब देखिए सारा auspicious bed है. सारी buildings में रिवर का ऑस्पिशियस बेड है, which is again according to astrology and according to वास्तु शास्त्र. Right? It is there. So वो बिल्कुल घड़ी देखकर उनकी नींव की खुदाई होती थी किसी भी जगह की, किसी भी इमारत की. और लाल किले में तो पूरी लाख सेक्रीफाइस कर रहे हैं, वो बर्ड सेक्रीफाइस कर रहे हैं और बिल्कुल वही घड़ी पे उन्होंने कैंपेन्स भी जा रहे हैं. तो मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम वो देख रहे हैं. बच्चा कोई पैदा हो रहा है, आप पेंटिंग्स में देखिए, मुगल पेंटिंग, नीचे एक पंडित पूरा पंचांग लेके बैठा होगा वो.
बिल्कुल.
सो हुमायूं is very much interested in astronomy more than anyone else. He is the one who talks about movement of the planets also, movement of the stars also. So he's not just superstitious, but he knows about astronomy. And astrology, he believes that. So he knew कि Venus इधर दिखेगा और आज Venus का मूवमेंट होगा और सबसे खूबसूरत आज ही दिखेगा, तो वो उसको देखने गया था. So that means he was observant.
So now we come to a very interesting segment of our session, which is called Myth Blaster with Master. Okay, there are many myths that are associated with these historical figures and historical monuments. So today what we'll try and do is burst some of those myths. So I'd like your quick reactions and answers to some of the comments that I'm going to make very quickly. And let's see where these myths really, are they myths? Are they reality? Is there any sense of truth in them or not? Is it true that one of Humayun's wife was a Hindu and till date her grave is still undiscovered?
Okay, as far as the Persian sources are concerned and the historical records are concerned, there is no Hindu wife. जनरली एक ये गलतफहमी लोगों को हो जाती है, क्योंकि अकबर सिंध में पैदा हुए थे, उमरकोट में पैदा हुए थे, तो अकबर की मदर जो है सिंधी थी। अकबर की मदर सिंधी हिंदू नहीं है, ये हमीदा बानो बेगम ही है, क्योंकि उनका पूरा रिकॉर्ड, चाहे वो बायजिद हो, चाहे वो जौहर आफ्ताबची हो, चाहे वो गुलबदन बानो बेगम, वो पूरा हमीदा बानो बेगम की डिलीवरी के लिए कैसे वो राणा, जो उमरकोट के राणा है, उनको शेल्टर देते हैं, प्रसाद उनके पास जाते हैं, और हुमायूं इज बोर्न देयर। और प्रेगनेंसी में हुमायूं, हमीदा बानो बेगम कैसे ट्रेवल कर रही हैं, वो सारी चीज़ें उसमें मेंशन है। तो हमीदा बानो बेगम जो अकबर की मदर है और हुमायूं की वाइफ है, हुमायूं की 8 बीवियां हैं, और गुलबदन बानो बेगम ने सबके अकाउंट दिए हुए हैं, और उसमें से लो बॉर्न जरूर हैं, जैसे मावाई जान जो है वो लो बॉर्न है, वो गुलबदन बानो बेगम के सर्वेंट की बेटी है, बट कोई भी हिंदू नहीं है। सो इट्स अ मिसनोमर, या
टोटल मिथ,
या
ओके। ऐसा माना जाता है कि हुमायूं काफी बार ओपियम कंज्यूम करके वॉर पर निकले थे। इज दैट ट्रू?
सी, ओपियम कंज्यूम करके वो हंट पे और वॉक पे तो निकले हैं, और ओपियम कंज्यूम करके वो वॉर पे निकले हैं ऐसा कोई हमें नहीं मिलता। जनरली वो जो ओपियम वो खा रहे हैं वो इवनिंग टाइम जब वो रिलैक्स हैं,
राइट।
We do not have any record that when he's going to fight बहादुर शाह या शेर शाह, तब वो ओपियम कंज्यूम करके निकले। ओपियम ईटर तो हैं वो, there is no denying, वो भी हैं, और बाद जहांगीर भी ओपियम खाते हैं, तो ओपियम कंजम्पशन तो है, बट वो उसको लेके वो वॉक करने जा रहे हैं, घुड़सवारी करते हैं, बट वॉर लड़ने जा रहे हैं, ये हमें।
एक और मिथ है कि हुमायूं's tomb has some treasure hidden during the time of बहादुर शाह जफर, जब वो वहां से भाग रहे थे। Is that true?
या देखिए, ये अकबर जो थे ना, हुमायूं के बेटे, ये बहुत इंटेलिजेंट रूलर हुए हैं। तो अकबर ने क्या करा था, अकबर क्योंकि आगरा में थे और ये टूम यहाँ पे था, तो उस समय टूम पे एक सोने का रोशनदान टंगा हुआ था, राइट। पूरा एक टेपेस्ट्री थी, और उनके हुमायूं की स्वॉर्ड विद गोल्ड कास्ट और उनकी सैंडल, वो सब वहाँ रखी होती थी। तो हुमायूं, अकबर ने सोचा था कि जब मैं यहाँ नहीं हूँ, मतलब रॉयल कैंप यहाँ नहीं है, तो लोग लूटने के लिए जरूर आएंगे यहाँ।
करेक्ट।
तो उसने वो सब बदलवा के, उसने कॉपर का उसने पहले ही कर दिया था, तो वहाँ कोई खजाने नहीं है। वहाँ अगर खजाना है तो मुगल फैमिली के स्केलेटन्स हैं जो हम बरीड हैं। बहरहाल वहाँ पे कोई भी ट्रेजर नहीं है, क्योंकि मुगल ट्रेजर हमेशा अकबर ऑनवर्ड्स वो राजपूत कंटिजेंट की निगरानी में रखता था, कचवाहस की।
हाँ।
और ये आगरा में थी ट्रेजरी, तो यहाँ वो नहीं,
यहाँ मिलने की
कोई प्लीज जाके हुमायूं पे उनकी खोदाई मत करने लगना कि किसी को कोई खजाना मिल जाएगा, क्योंकि वहाँ कोई खजाना नहीं है। आपको कुछ खोपड़ियाँ और कुछ हड्डियाँ मिल सकते हैं, बट खजाना नहीं मिलेगा। राइट।
सो ऐसा माना जाता है कि हुमायूं फेल फ्रॉम शेर मंडल एंड he died because of falling from there. But some also say it's a myth that it was, the accident, it was not an accident, it was something that was murder that was planned. Any instances or any research on this part?
Yes. So as far as death of Humayun is concerned, Jauhar also writes in detail about it. And in Akbarnama it's also mentioned. Even वो ये भी कहते हैं कि he was wearing a high cloak, और उसमें वो गाली देते हैं, अब्यूज करते हैं कि अजान देने वाले की, कि उसने उसी वक्त अजान की आवाज़ करी, तो हुमायूं जो है अजान की आवाज़ सुन के वो झुक गए। हिज क्लोक वॉज लॉन्ग, तो उसमें उनका पैर अटका और वो नीचे गिरते चले गए। इट वॉज नॉट, क्योंकि वो अकेले हैं, उनके पीछे कोई नहीं है। जो उनका ईयर बेरर है जौहर आफ्ताबची भी उस समय वहाँ नहीं है, तो उनको धक्का देने का या उनको मर्डर करने का ये कोई प्लान नहीं है। लेकिन जब वो गिरे हैं तो उनके सर पे, आई थिंक इट वाज ब्रेन हैमरेज। क्योंकि जब वो गिरे हैं तो उनके राइट हैंड साइड पे बहुत तेज चोट लगा था, एंड दैट इज कंफर्म बोथ इन अकबरनामा एंड दैट इज इवन रिटन बाय जौहर आफ्ताब जी। तो उनकी इमीडिएट डेथ तो नहीं हुई है, बट विद इन 24 आवर्स उनकी डेथ हो गई है। तो ये एक्सीडेंट है। देखिए, हुमायूं के अगर जो बुरा चाहने वाले हैं जैसे कामरान या हिंडाल, कामरान वॉज ब्लाइंडेड बाय दिस टाइम, हिंडाल वॉज ऑलरेडी इन द फेवर ऑफ इन द गुड बुक्स ऑफ हुमायूं। जो उसके सीनियर नोबल्स हैं वो उसको बहुत अच्छा, जैसे तारदी बेग वगैरह, वो बहुत उसकी आज्ञा का पालन नहीं करते थे, बट दे वर नॉट ओबेइंग हिम प्रॉपरली, बट दे वर वेरी रिस्पेक्टफुल टू हुमायूं। तो उसके मर्डर की तो कोई साजिश अगर होती तो अकबरनामा में जरूर मेंशन होती, और नहीं तो जौहर आफ्ताब जी या बायज़िद कोई ना कोई तो उसको मेंशन कर रहा, और नहीं तो जो अकबर से सबसे ज्यादा चिढ़ता है बदायूनी, जो अकबर की बहुत बुराई करता है, वो तो लिखता, बट कहीं पे भी मर्डर नहीं, मर्डर
So no foul play. It is an accident.
इट कैन बी राइट, कहते हैं फोकलोर हो सकती है ये, बट आई थिंक ही हैड टेकन ओपियम आल्सो, so he was already so he had gone for watching Venus, but अजान की आवाज पे वो जल्दी से नीचे उतरने में उनका पैर लड़खड़ाया है और वो गिर गए हैं, वो झुके हैं अजान की आवाज सुन के, और उसी में क्लोक उनके उसमें फंस गया है, and then he came down. So that is what the historical records are telling. And as a historian, I'll go only by the historical record, right?
So the other question I have is Humayun tomb the blueprint for Taj Mahal?
Yes, definitely. And Taj Mahal is the improvised version, we can say. And but definitely, I mean, आप हुमायूं टूम पे खड़े होके देखिए, सेम रेस्ड प्लेटफॉर्म है, सेम चार बाग है, बीच में है वाइट मार्बल का यूज है, वहाँ पे पूरा वाइट मार्बल है, सिमेट्री आप देखिए पूरी मेंटेन है। यहाँ पे बस डिफरेंस ये है कि रेस्ड प्लेटफॉर्म यहाँ पे ओपन है ना, उसमें सो दैट मौलवीज कुड रिसाइट यू नो कुरान इन द नेम फॉर द ब्लेस्ड फॉर हुमायूं सोल, बट वहाँ पे वो क्लोज्ड है।
Right.
It's I think it's a same thing, right? Chamford angles वहाँ भी है, यहाँ पे
बिल्कुल,
बस minarets नहीं है।
That's true. Is it true that Emperor Humayun allowed a person, popularly a water carrier, to sit on his throne outside the royal family?
देखिए, ये जितनी कहानियां आ रही हैं ना, ये सब गुलबदन बानो बेगम से आ रही है। गुलबदन बानो बेगम टॉक्स अबाउट, शी सेड निजाम नाम था उसका। शी सेड कि वो जब चौसा के बैटल से वो भाग रहे थे तो उनका घोड़ा जो है वो पानी में चला गया था, और ये जो भिश्ती था वाटर कैरियर, ये उसने बचाया था। तो ही सेड, हुमायूं ने उससे पूछा, डू यू नो हु आई एम? सो ही सेड, यस आई रिकॉग्नाइज माय बादशाह। सो हुमायूं टोल्ड हिम, ही प्रॉमिस्ड हिम दैट यू नो when I'll go back, once I'm I'm on the throne, I'll make you बादशाह for one day. In fact, वो आकर उसको बादशाह उन्होंने बनाया, एक दिन के लिए उसको कर दिया। हुमायूं's brother didn't like it, they didn't come to the court. वो इतना नाराज हो गए थे, but this is well recorded in Persian sources. So it's not a misnomer, it's not a farce, it's actually a historical truth.
Good. We busted that myth, and it's not a myth. It's reality.
It's a reality
that has been debunked.
Yes.
I think with this we've debunked a lot of myths associated. There are many more stories. There are many more narratives that need to be spoken about. But we are going to do that on the Heritage Walk as well as in the Baithak. But before we leave, my last question to you is, who is a historian? It seems this title has been now used quite a bit, very loosely, if I may say so. Every person is a historian. Yes. I've seen a lot of times people in the travel companies also come and say that we'd like a historian to conduct a heritage walk. And anyone and everyone today is a historian. But I would like to understand from you, who according to you is a historian?
Yeah, so historian, it's again आइडेंटिटी क्राइसिस हो गया है मे बी।
बिल्कुल।
So historian is the one who can, first of all, differentiate what is a historical fact and how that historical fact should be told to people or it should be written objectively. First of all, historian is the person who has to be a neutral person. He should not be guided his or her emotions, regional biases, religion biases, any of the biases. No subjectivity from historian's side should be there, right? And historian is also the one who cannot write the fact without citing the source. Nowadays, we see people are writing history without citing the source. As a historian will never write any fact without citing the source. And if there are multiple sources saying the same thing, or with a minute, even a very minute difference, he will quote that also. So historian will not say that yes, this is the right thing. No, there's always a chance of, there's always a probability in history. So that's how we say that probably, maybe, right? And when you write history taking into account 3-4 things. Firstly, it should be written on the basis of primary sources, right? First is the primary sources. It has to be contemporary account. It has to be an eyewitness account, right? So that should be, or it has to be an autobiography. But there also, we do not believe everything to be right. We counter check it, right? Counter check it with the other sources. So historian will never tell you that this is the actual fact. They said that this is probably the fact, right? As stated in the sources, they will present you all the facts and they will leave it open to their readers or to their students and whoever is listening to them to decide, yes, what is right, right?
Absolutely.
Unlike nowadays, popular historians, where they write everything with a certainty. So in history, we always leave a gap for doubt.
Yeah.
And when you doubt, when you question, then a historian improvise it. Historian is not offended by it. They will always improvise it.
Yes.
So first is very objective interpretation of historical facts is to be done by historian. So historian is like what E.H. Carr has said. He's like a fisherman on a fishmonger slab. कि वो देखता है मछली, right? और उसका जो भी सड़ा गला हिस्सा होता है उसको काट के आपको बिल्कुल वो उसको अच्छे फॉर्म में प्रेजेंट करता है. Right. So that's a work of a historian. That's what historian is.
Thank you so much. I think that busts a big myth around who is a historian, because आजकल राह चलते सब लोग historian बन रहे हैं.
Yes.
But there is a special place, there is a special position. There's a lot of hard work that goes in becoming a historian. Years and years of research, years and years of studying and interpreting, deciphering things in the right way, the narratives, the room of doubt being there is so critical and so important. और इसीलिए मैं ये कहना चाहूँगी, thank you, Dr. Paliwal,
Thank you so
a
much.
true historian, to be here with us today, for being with all of us and giving us so much information. But ये सिलसिला और ये session यहाँ नहीं खत्म होता. This is followed up by a heritage walk this July of Humayun's tomb and a Baitak where we'll have so many more anecdotes and narratives about Humayun and people associated with him, the era associated with him. And I'm sure you're going to enjoy a lot more in the other 2 sessions as well. Look forward to seeing you soon. For any questions, any contributions from your end, any suggestions, please do write to us. Our contact details are given right there. Thank you very much. Have a very good day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.